today's session, as I say, is meant to explain, what the accountability framework is, and also, see what it means for civil society organizations. Many of these civil society are also partners of the Alliance 8.7. And then, we're gonna have we're gonna hear from the chair of the Alliance 8.7. She doesn't need introduction, I believe. Everybody knows her, and the Alliance would have been very grateful for her leadership and really leading the Alliance and the whole Pathfinder process to the point where it is a more productive, a more cohesive Alliance, and these strategic partners and all the partners that are part of the Alliance. So I want to really express our gratitude to the leadership of the chair Anousheh for leading this great and important institution to now, and all the results that have come up from the Pathfinder progress that's been made, and it's making really a tremendous impact in the achievement of SDG 8.7. After hearing from her, I will come in and then explain, and then after explaining, we're going to have a Q&A, and after the Q&A, we're going to have our colleague Benjamin to close the meeting. Just to remind that this event is being co-organized or organized in partnership, with partnership between Free the Slaves and the Alliance 8.7. Without further ado, I want also to thank all of you for turning in this morning or this afternoon or evening, depending on where you are, and really attend this very important session. And we look forward to maybe having some of the discussions with you. If you have any questions, we have sufficient time for that, before we can end the meeting. Beside Anousheh and myself, we also have my colleague Daniel Ehighalua, who is the Free the Slave Policy and Advocacy Manager, who will really help us lead, facilitate the session on the Q&A. And as I said, we also will be joined by Smith Benjamin, who is the partnership lead at the Alliance 8.7 Secretariat, but also linked with the ILO. Without really further ado, I would like to invite Chair Anousheh Karvar for some opening remarks to get us started. Thank you so much, Madam Anousheh. Welcome.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Bukeni, for this introduction. But this is not only for this introduction that I want to express my gratitude towards yourself, Free the Slaves, and the CSO organizations that were involved in the production of this accountability framework, because you were really, really instrumental on that. You insisted a lot on the importance of giving the Pathfinder country community of the Alliance 8.7 an accountability framework. And we all agreed on the aims we were pursuing by doing so, which was to prevent, by all means, that the Pathfinder status or label would not be a blue-washing enterprise, and also to make sure that we are helpful to those governments that take into account the acceleration of the achievement of SDG 8.7 goals and targets, and make sure that we are helpful and we are not a tribunal. We had in mind all the time that we had a very narrow path between these two positions, not being a tribunal, being helpful, but not allow any blue washing with the status of Pathfinder country. So if I may, I would just say a few words about what the accountability framework means for the Pathfinder process, and for the Alliance 8.7 as a whole, but also give some insights about the specific role that the CSOs can play in supporting Pathfinder countries as they implement their roadmaps. And last, I would also say a few words on the fact that as we approach 2030, why the Alliance 8.7 partnership remains an important framework for all the stakeholders and how the accountability framework can enable that partnership. So first, about the process. The adoption of the Pathfinder country accountability framework, as Bukeni said, is an important milestone for the Alliance 8.7. It strengthens the accountability around the Alliance 8.7 Pathfinder country mechanism to ensure its effectiveness and credibility. The accountability framework provides also a very clear guidance on what it means to be a Pathfinder country and the expectations and the responsibilities that come with it. Since the launch of the Pathfinder country strategy in 2018, it has become evident the need to have a framework that would give the Pathfinder country status a meaning, but also a clear direction. The overarching goal of this framework is therefore to strengthen the status and integrity of the Pathfinder country community. And for that, the means to achieve that is to establish clear standards and expectations for coordination with partners to make tangible changes on the ground. The framework makes a strong emphasis on the multi-stakeholder approach throughout the Pathfinder countries cycle, from the manifestation of interest, which is the first phase, to planning, implementing, and reporting. CSOs and other relevant stakeholders have a key role to play in all stages of that process, and I will come further on that. The strength of the Alliance lies in the diversity of its partners, both at global and national levels. In fact, as you know, this framework was an initiative of Free the Slaves, that is a member of the Global Coordinating Group of the Alliance, the governance of the Alliance, and of the SDG 8.7 monitoring working group, which was, the group that was created, launched, and gathered very frequently in order to produce the framework, in consultation with all the members of the Global Coordinating Group to reach to this version that was adopted in December 2022 in the framework of an Alliance 8.7 strategic workshop. And again, yesterday, in a meeting of the Global Coordination Group, we again, made sure that all our members agreed with this framework. So this is the first point I wanted to insist on. So what role can the CSOs play in that? Civil society organizations have a significant role in general and overall in Alliance 8.7. They are represented in the governance of the Alliance on its Global Coordinating Committee, as I said. And in this respect, they help shape the global partnership's future strategy and priorities, also with respect to Pathfinder countries. CSOs also represent the largest number of the Alliance 8.7's network of over 500 partners. These organizations have significant networks of their own and important expertise that can contribute to achieving our common goal. All of us were very keen on the fact that we should, in a way, integrate much more these 500 partners in the everyday life of Pathfinder countries on the ground and also at the global level in order to achieve Target 8.7 the quickest possible, because 2030 is tomorrow, and we should be very efficient in the way of doing so. So in Pathfinder countries, Alliance 8.7 supports a government-driven, multi-stakeholder approach that serves in developing, adopting, and implementing national strategies and roadmaps to tackle modern slavery, forced labor, human trafficking, and child labor. CSOs are key partners in this process, alongside employers and workers' organizations, international and regional organizations, and other concerned stakeholders. The newly adopted accountability framework places emphasis on this multi-stakeholder approach and on ensuring, as I mentioned before, that CSOs are engaged in all phases of PFC process, including on the implementation of national roadmaps. However, more could be done, we all know that, to strengthen their role, ensuring that all Alliance 8.7 CSO partners at national level are fully informed of the PFC process from the onset, and that they have opportunities to be actively engaged. For this, we can not only build on existing mechanisms, but also find new outreach opportunities. And I think the whole governance of the Alliance will be very careful about any new ideas and initiatives that can be proposed. And also on the ground, some very interesting things are going on. For example, in Malaysia, a PFC country candidate, the government issued a national level call for interest to reach out to interested Alliance 8.7 partners and organize a one-day session with them on the issue and to explore potential for collaboration going forward in the Pathfinder process. This is a good example of that other countries could follow. So we should be very aware of that and be helpful for other PFCs to know about this very successful endeavor. Civil society organizations also have an important role to play in ensuring that survivors of modern slavery, forced labor, child labor, and human trafficking are actively engaged. Through their networks, CSOs can bring their voices to the table and help ensure that their recommendations are taken into consideration in the elaboration and implementation of national roadmaps. And last but not least, I want to make sure that as we approach 2030, the Alliance 8.7 partnership remains an important framework for all stakeholders. And I'm sure that the accountability framework can enable that partnership. Because as you know, Alliance 8.7 is a very unique partnership in the UN environment with its partner countries from the global north, international organizations, social partners at the global level, NGOs, business networks, and the family, the community of 30 and more Pathfinder countries up to now. 6 years after its launch, the time is now it was right to renew this. The Alliance, as I said, has over 500 partners. Many of those in the event today are partners, I believe. We are committed to finding ways to more fully involve those partners through action groups and topics they are interested in. While the SDG Monitoring Working Group is comprised of members of the Global Coordination Committee only, the accountability framework nevertheless offers CSOs opportunities to become more involved in probably the most important aspect of the Alliance 8.7, that is implementation of national roadmaps. I would encourage all partners of Alliance to liaise with the Secretariat i.e. the ILO, and the representatives in the GCG of the Alliance, in the case of CSOs, that is Free the Slaves and Global March, to get involved and support roadmap implementation, which is really key in having results, in the fight against child labor, forced labor, modern slavery, and human trafficking. We also welcome proposals from partners for new activities, whether in the context of this framework or otherwise. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anousheh, for those very clear words and an overview that give us why it is important for civil society to be engaged in this, in the Pathfinder community, which that I like the word community, because we are, which is a very inclusive word that means, all of us, we are part of it. And it's really the spirit of the Alliance to really make sure they can strengthen those partnerships as we all want to achieve SDG 8.7 in due time, meaning 2025 for child labor and 2030 for others, goals. So thank you so much, Madam Karvar. I'm sure there will be so many questions for you, but probably you won't be until the end of the meeting. But colleagues, if you have any questions that you want to ask, please, you can use the chat box. Just write your question, your questions in there. And since we may have the chair for another few minutes, once those questions pop up, we can make sure that we can send them to her so that she can have time to respond. But really, thank you so much, Madam Chair. I want to now start to really present the accountability framework. But before I can do that, I want to thank the Secretariat really for the hard work that they're putting into this to get it done, and for really the organization of this session. Of course, Benjamin, Christina, Jane, and others, we are very grateful for your support, really, and thank you so much. I also want to thank the Department of Labor, through the ILO, who has helped really to support and to provide their support to make sure that we do have these live interpretations, as the event is global and there is need to make sure that everybody can speak and really use the language feels comfortable. I want to really express our heartfelt gratitude for that support, both from the Secretariat and the Department of Labor, of course, and also other partners who help the Alliance in general. So I want to give you a presentation of what the framework is. Allow me to share my screen. Okay, so I think we can all see my screen, isn't it? And if you can't, please let me know. I'm trying to make sure I can make it full screen. Okay. So again, as I'm speaking, if you have any questions that you want to ask, just put in your chat. And I just shared a link where you can upload the official version of the accountability framework. If you're going to chat, you're going to see the link that I put. We know there are more information that is very useful through the Alliance 8.7 website, which is being rebuilt. So probably in the next few weeks, we will have a new version of the Alliance 8.7 website, and there will be much more information out there. But if you want to get an official version, you can download it there, or give us your name and your emails and your affiliations, and then we can be, we'll be happy to send send it to you via email. So today's session, as I said, the objective really is to present an exchange on the accountability framework for Pathfinder countries, and really the second, small objective would be to discuss and exchange on the implementation, the implications for CSOs and their engagement. So those are kind of two minor, but of course, happy to see if we can even have more that we can achieve today. But really, one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we achieve today are these two. Sometimes we talk about Pathfinder. We may not really, in the context of the alliance. We wanted to give you a little overview, a small overview of what is, what Pathfinder is, and in the context of the accountability framework, what are the benefits, and also who are the partners. Of course, Madam Chair explained who are the partners, but I'm just repeating what she said. In terms of who are Pathfinder, you can find all this information at the alliance site. But in the context of this accountability framework, the Pathfinder countries are really those that are committed to going further and faster to achieve objectives of target 8.7 of the sustainable development goal. And also, what those Pathfinder actually also commit to accelerate efforts and are willing to try new approaches, from which others can learn to support target 8.7 urgent deadlines. As I said, we have for child labor deadline is 2025, and for other 8.7 target would be 2030. And also, Pathfinder means, to have a Pathfinder status, it is really open to any ILO member, ILO, which is International Labour Organization, any member state, regardless of the development, whether it is from the global north or global south, or the developed or underdeveloped, whatever. Those are, that's where, that can access the Pathfinder status. But also, let's make sure that we understand that only government can apply to become PFC or Pathfinder countries. But also, as Madam Chair did say, really the whole of government, our approach is key to the process. And through a multi-stakeholder consultation with social dialogue as its cornerstone. So, that is kind of in a nutshell what a Pathfinder means in the context of this really accountability framework. But when someone when a country want to become a Pathfinder, what do they have as benefit? I just kind of pull up 4 of them, but there is more that you can find in the accountability framework itself, the document. So first, for example, a country can gain the development and economic benefits that comes with reduced forced labor, human trafficking, modern slavery, and child labor. Of course, it is a goal or a concern that we have. How do we eradicate this? And once it is eradicated, there are tons of benefit that you can see at society level and also at development level, but also, and most importantly, also at economic level. The other benefits include, to harness new resources and engagement through demonstrated willingness to act. Another one is, you can get to coordinate technical support and assistance between all partners operating in a PFC. The other benefits also include serving as a catalyst and model for other countries to accelerate progress worldwide. So those are kind of a part of the benefit, but as I said, you have more that you can find in the accountability framework itself. But who can be part of the Alliance 8.7? So there is that list, and you can find more details on the Alliance 8.7 website, where in the terms of reference they really list the different categories of the Pathfinder partners, of the Alliance partners. Now, then the question becomes, as Madam Chair explained, how important it is to have an accountability framework. That's what I abbreviate as an AF. But we can ask questions as a society why this is important. So a couple reasons, which is not really a limited, list. Sorry, as Madam Chair did remind us that the overarching goal of the accountability framework is to really strengthen the integrity. The status and the integrity of the Pathfinder country community by establishing clear standards and expectations for coordination with partners to make tangible changes on the ground. So the impact on the ground was something that really can be strengthened, by the accountability framework. But also, it also provides a framework that will ensure an environment that is enabling and where Pathfinder countries can effectively deliver on their roadmaps. So those are kind of a couple of reasons. Of course, you can find more as you go through the accountability framework itself. But these are kind of a couple of them why these two or this framework was very much needed. Now, how this Pathfinder, this is kind of structured, how the accountability framework works. So it works into these kind of 5 phases, and they are really very important phases. Each one is very critical, is very important. Now, while we start with the first one, which is the manifestation of interest, meaning a country would like to become a Pathfinder. There is a process for that. So the manifestation of interest include when an applicant Pathfinder countries will gather information on the Alliance 8.7 and the Pathfinder country community. They need to know what it is, what is the Alliance. And also they need, the applicant Pathfinder also send an official letter, an official request to become a Pathfinder country to the director of to the ILO Director General, or of course, the Alliance chair. So that is also part of the manifestation of interest. And then, the Secretariat, when they receive the letter, the Secretariat of the Alliance send a response letter inviting the country or the applicant country to start consultations and the organization of a strategic workshop in a whole of government approach, as Madam Chair explained and insisted, among all concerned stakeholders, including relevant government agencies and organizations, social partners, civil society organizations, business representatives, etc. And then after that invitation, the applicant Pathfinder country identifies key stakeholders, which might include, can do, for example, a mapping to see who is out there working on this and with whom we can work together, and really find or really assess what is the existing coordination mechanism in the country, or considering creating one, which can include a task force or different committee or coalitions, whatever it may be. And this really will also include, the ILO office, if there is one in the country, survivors, and also survivor networks, CSOs, private sector actors, etc., academia, researchers. So to try to really identify key stakeholders that may be brought into the process to accompany or to work with the government as they try to tackle this very important issue. And what also included in the manifestation of interest, this is part of it, which is, together now with these relevant stakeholders, the applicant Pathfinder country initiates a situational mapping on the status of the SDG 8.7 in the country, which include forced labor, human trafficking, modern slavery, and child labor, to do a situational mapping and assessment to see what is the situation and to understand what will really take to tackle this effectively. In that same phase, it also includes the fact that the applicant Pathfinder country is now invited to submit and present the main priorities of their roadmap and the consultation process to build the roadmap to the GCG during one of its regular meetings. So after all of this has been done, the Pathfinder, the applicant will then kind of propose a roadmap that can be sent to the GCG. And Madam Chair has explained what the GCG, which is the Global Coordinating Group of the Alliance 8.7. And then if the applicant Pathfinder country fulfills all the requirements, the GCG grant Pathfinder country status, and the applicant country becomes a Pathfinder country. And then in the same phase of the manifestation of interest, an active Pathfinder country, here you can find it, can identify activities in line with their roadmap priorities, as well as next steps, identified during the last reporting period. So someone, a country that already have existed can still, share what they want to focus on going forward. Now, the second phase is the planning phase. So in this planning phase, it is very important that we kind of emphasize on key few things. One of them being the applicant Pathfinder country organizes the strategic workshops. Remember, we said the Pathfinder country has to have a roadmap. So that roadmap is a result of the strategic workshop. In this workshop, it will also be insisted that really a Pathfinder country candidate may organize a review of these plans, to determine whether they are still relevant or not. So that is one of the options that is also provided. And then in this planning phase, the Pathfinder country as well now submit its roadmap. When the roadmap is submitted, then the Pathfinder country is now invited to submit and present the main priority of the roadmap and the consultation process to build a roadmap during the GCG meeting. So that is also done. The other thing is that these existing Pathfinder countries will, if they fulfill all the requirements, the Pathfinder status can be granted. And when it is granted, it now comes the phase of the implementation. So you see how we have gone from manifestation of interest, which really involve gathering all the necessary information and really making sure they take stock of what exists in the country, and then send the letter, and then start with the planning phase, and after the planning phase, the implementation, which is really now the country implement its roadmap. The roadmap that was agreed during the strategic meeting or workshop is now agreed and now being implemented, of course, after it's been approved or maybe shared with the Secretariat. And after that, the other phase, which is the monitoring and reporting. This is one of the crucial phase, which is now the Pathfinder country now is now asked to report, to report on the progress being made. And this report really is key, as there is a timeline to submit that report, and that report has to be also supported by evidence to really making sure that the progress can be verified, can be is evident in the eyes of all the stakeholders and all those who are concerned. And really, the Alliance 8.7 also ensures the visibility of the progress, because it is kind of something that is being shared via online as well. But also, it should also be mentioned that really in consultation, with the relevant stakeholders through the coordination mechanism in place, for example, those task force, that's why they're very, very important. The Pathfinder country will submit the annual progress report to the monitoring and reporting working group of the Alliance 8.7. Actually, the deadline for doing that is April of every year. Then the SDG monitoring working group will, the monitoring working group of the Alliance will review the report and also will submit some of the feedback for, to the Pathfinder country. And then the Alliance, of course, as I said, will then, can publish the report on the website. Actually, if you go to the website that is currently being reviewed, you can find most of those that information. And then last not least is the review phase. This is now, really the phase where the Pathfinder country progress report is being reviewed against the roadmap. So the roadmap, has said we will reach XY number of Z, and the evidence of steps or fact, and the evidence is here. Now the review phase is now to see how the country has done so far. And that is where, if there is no progress, of course, some measures might be taken. And if there is progress, of course, that will be very much appreciated. However, it should be said that really, if in case there is no review, there is no progress, there might be some corrective measures, including to review the status if the country really deserves to keep the status of being a Pathfinder country, or that kind of a status should be should be deemed inactive. So that is those kind of 5 phases that helps to organize and really strengthen the mechanism of the Pathfinder process. Pathfinder communities. But one thing that I want also to mention is that there is an ongoing dialogue throughout. So a Pathfinder country can consult, can contact, can meet with the Secretariat any moment when they see the need for doing so. So the dialogue aims at really making sure that there is a kind of an ongoing assistance or support for the Pathfinder country as they implement their roadmap. Recognizing that this is not an easy task, because it is a commitment from the country, and really to make sure that the Alliance can provide the support needed, it is very critical. Now, as we can see from that, we can see kind of 3 Pathfinder country statuses. One being, when you are an applicant, and when you are active, and when you become inactive. So when you are an applicant, it's really you explore what it means. You submit the manifestation of interest. You identify key stakeholders, and you undertake situational mapping, as we explained. And then when you become active, meaning you have been granted the PFC status, the Pathfinder country status, and you kind of start implementing your roadmap. It means you are demonstrating commitment to implement meaningful efforts. In that regard, you are adopting and implementing or enhancing national action plans or policies. You are providing support needed to facilitate acceleration, meaning, through collaboration, you can inspire, you can share with other countries as well. It means also you are being active, an active part of the Pathfinder country community. Remember, as Madam Chair did insist on this. But also, it means that you are also promoting the ratification and working toward the full implementation of recognized international human rights standards and obligation. This is very key as you now are a Pathfinder country, an active Pathfinder country. And when you become inactive, this means you know, there is no clear commitment. The country can be considered inactive by the global coordinating group. And when you are inactive, of course, you don't get the benefit, as we explained earlier. And also, when you become inactive, it doesn't mean you are thrown out of the community. It means there are the different other additional steps that you need to take to be an active member of the community. Remember, it is very important to insist that it is a community, and some members in the community might be active and some others might be inactive. But when members are inactive, there is always a way to make sure that they can, they can really, come back and being active within the community. So that is a possibility. That's why you see the curve, which is here. So it goes from, and then it goes back again to the planning phase after you've been, deemed inactive. There is always a way you can come back and be active if you demonstrate real commitment after being inactive. Now, as civil society organizations, what are really some of the key implications for civil society with regard to the accountability framework? As part of the civil society community, I think this is really offers a great opportunity to effectively engage in the Pathfinder community at country level specific. It really helps strengthen cooperation between civil society organizations, partners, and government at country level. It also helps to support. One of the implications include also, supporting the development and the implementation of the Pathfinder country roadmap. Remember, in the situational in the key stakeholder mapping that a country does when they are trying to manifest the interest of becoming Pathfinder country. So this is where there might be opportunities to help support the development of the roadmap and also its implementation. Civil society can contribute to show the evidence of progress or no progress. The other one can include really, civil society can support Pathfinder country in ensuring that the roadmap, include the priority or the need for survivors and also affected communities. So there is really a whole list of, what can be the implications of the civil society with regard to this accountability framework. But all of this is good. All of this is very beautiful. However, we have to think of, what are the conditions to see this happen? If we have to see, the implication really in a way that is effective for civil society. So we can have some assumptions. Some of them meaning really the Pathfinder government are open and willing to work with civil society partners, civil society organizations and other partners. So that is, we assume this is possible. And also, we assume as well that there is a political will on the side of the Pathfinder and also a honest and willingness on the side of civil society. So it is really something that really the two parties, meaning the civil society and the Pathfinder government and other partners, really manifest, some willingness to work together and do something big together. It also assumes that the general climate in the country allows all stakeholders to participate and to support, because sometimes it may be not easy to collaborate and to provide support, even if the will might be there, but they have to have all the parameters that can allow all stakeholders to participate. We can also assume that all civil societies are interested in partnering and collaborating with the Pathfinder and other key partners in the country. So it is really, to kind of assert the interest of the parties. It also means that there is a framework that allows survivors, for example, and affected community to be consulted, and that their views or priorities can align with the government. Sometimes it is good to assume the survivor need X, Y, and Z, but it's always very important to bring them also and involve them as the definition of of the roadmap is being determined. It is very important. It also means that CSOs, civil society organizations, have the resources that may allow them to participate. So we all know resources are always an issue. It's always, have always been a big challenge. But this really helps. These are the assumptions that, the civil society can have resources, both human and also financial resources, to allow them to participate. So in all, there is really a huge opportunity for civil society organizations that is being created. That is the result of this accountability framework, but also conditions that will allow civil society to really help and support and be involved are also very necessary. So that's all. I think we still have time, because I know there might be so many questions. So that is pretty much what I wanted to share in terms of explaining what is the accountability framework. I hope I did try, but also really shedding light on what are the key implications for civil society organizations, as this framework is now here, and what can be the conditions that we may wish they are available for civil society to be effectively involved in the implementation of the accountability framework. I would like also to I know now we're gonna move to questions. I don't know if my colleague Daniel or Benj, if you have anything to add, or even Christina and Sarah Luna. Sorry, Sarah, I know you are online. I just saw you as well, and thank you again, Sarah, from Mexico government, for all the contribution that you did, that you made to make sure the accountability framework is a reality. So I want to now stop here and see if there is any questions in the chat that can be useful, that maybe the chair or anybody can respond. But really, I want to give maybe 5 minutes for Daniel or Sarah or Christina or Benj. If there is anything that you need to add, please come in before we can take on the question. But I also understand that Madam Chair might be ready to leave now. I don't know if she's still there. She's still here?
She had to leave, Bukeni.
Oh, okay. So sorry about that. So
maybe I will be more than glad to take 2 minutes, if you allow me.
Yes, please.
Well, really, thank you for organizing this meeting and this very nice event to really share all the work that I have to say, and I want to recognize publicly that you personally led in the context of Alliance 8.7. It's a big achievement, so congratulations publicly. And I was lucky enough to be part of it. I'm the delegate of Mexico to the Alliance 8.7, and we had very thorough discussions. And I think the main achievement from the side of governments that are Pathfinder countries, such as Mexico, is that this accountability framework will be useful for us to continue our efforts and precisely to connect our work with civil society organizations. We really believe one of the values of the Alliance 8.7 is precisely having you guys on board. So there's a long way to go to implement it, but I think we're on the right track. And I think if we do things right in the Alliance, we might set a very good example on alliances, multi-stakeholder alliances, where an accountability framework that very often it's something scary for governments actually works for everybody, for all stakeholders involved. So that's the main goal for us. And probably some of you that are here will remember that we were at the beginning very critical of this approach. We really wanted it to work, and we managed. So then again, my sincere congratulations to you, to everybody that was involved, to the Secretariat of the Alliance for having pulled through all these. People that are not here anymore, such as Laura and Thomas, but also people that are here, Christina, Ben, and everybody else. They have a lot of work to do now. I think we left them with a huge package, but I'm confident with this willingness, everybody will be able to do it. And I just realized there was interpretation and I should have used it. So, solo para decir, de nuevo, ahora en español, muchas felicidades y cuenten con México como país pionero, como miembro del Grupo Global de Coordinación, como miembro de la OIT también para impulsar este esfuerzo y que rinda frutos. Muchas gracias.
Bukeni, if I may step in. Yeah, just to...
Yes, please, Ben. Please go ahead.
Thank you. And good afternoon, good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be on this very important webinar. And thank you to Bukeni and Daniel Free the Slaves for organizing it. It's an important step now that accountability framework has been approved to roll it out and to explain what it means and the implications for civil society that have an incredibly important role to play in the alliance. And we're really hoping to kind of ramp that up with the accountability framework as kind of the centerpiece of that. So our chair, Anousheh Karvar, had to leave the webinar. She asked us to cover if there were any questions to respond. So I will just do my best to address a couple of those in the chat, and I think Christina, my colleague, will also respond. So there's a question on political will and countries. Do they really see the benefit of joining the alliance, and what do we do to kind of generate interest and mobilize that very important political will and interest in joining. And I think the intervention by Sara Luna just now is the sort of thing that's probably more convincing than anything else. For governments, for countries to hear from other countries what they get out of the alliance and how they see it benefiting their efforts. And so just, a couple of things that we point to. Obviously, ILO, we are working for the elimination of child labor, forced labor, human trafficking, and modern slavery in all of our member states, regardless of whether they're Pathfinder countries or not. Obviously we have that responsibility to promote acceleration on this agenda across the globe, really. So, and we're engaged with all of our member states on these issues. We do promote the alliance as an opportunity for countries to learn from each other. So really benefiting from the experience of other member states that have perhaps been at the process of developing national action plans or roadmaps for many years. Well, there's a lot of lessons learned over the 30 years that ILO's IPEC program has been working on child labor, for example, and that comes from our member states. And so the learning and the expertise that countries can tap into is one of the key, I think, motivations for countries to join, and also connecting to the international level. So bringing national experience to the alliance and being able to get credit for good work being done and for taking concrete steps to eliminate child labor, forced labor. And here I think the accountability framework is critical. It's not just a showcase for countries to kind of trumpet all of the good things they're doing. It's really a serious process, and there are concrete indicators that were developed by the SDG Monitoring Working Group with the support of Bukeni and I see Purva from Global March here, Mexico. So many people came around the table to develop this thing, and that really put in some pretty rigorous steps and indicators that countries are meant to report on, so that it has meaning, it is meaningful. There's a misperception at times that, to get ILO support, you need to become a Pathfinder country. I just want to make that clear. That's not the case at all. It's not primarily a funding mechanism. So it is much more about creating, eliminating duplication, improving coordination, sharing knowledge, and accelerating action. So those are the kind of things that we very much hang our hat on and are the rationale for the alliance. But let me pass the word, Bukeni, if it's okay, to Christina, who I think is going to address in more concrete way a couple of the other questions. So over to you, Christina.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you again, Bukeni. This has been really the result of a collective effort, and Bukeni has pushed a lot for this important milestone for the Alliance. I just wanted to go through some of the questions on the chat regarding the roadmaps and how to access the roadmaps, because apart from the political will, the roadmaps are an accountability tool, and precisely the new accountability framework aims to make sure that all stakeholders are involved throughout the process. If you go through the accountability framework, each of the phases emphasize on how the different stakeholders need to be involved in these processes. As mentioned by the chair, this means from the manifestation of interest, the country has to already mobilize the partners at the national level to manifest interest, then to the planning, implementation, and reporting. So the implementation of this accountability framework will make sure and will promote this involvement of stakeholders. Then there's a question about the standards of the report. The SDG Monitoring Group of the Alliance also developed this reporting template for Pathfinder countries that all countries have to follow to report every year. And in this reporting template, there's also several questions that address how stakeholders were involved in the process, and going stakeholder by stakeholder. So to mention specifically how CSOs were involved, how workers' organizations were involved, how employers' organizations were involved, how other government organizations were involved. So that's very specific in this regard. And I think Ben already addressed the question on how Alliance or the ILO is pushing for countries to become Pathfinders. But just to recall that the Pathfinder process is a voluntary process, is a voluntary, voluntary process. So it's something that the government, together with the all stakeholders, decide to undertake. And of course, as mentioned by Ben, the examples of existing Pathfinder countries serve as a motivation or inspiration for other countries to join the alliance. So it's more in that sense that countries continue to join the alliance. Thank you very much again, and over to you, Bukeni.
Yes. I don't know, Christina, thank you so much. And there is another question here from Terry. He's asking if the alliance will create standards for the annual report to ensure they are thorough and accurate, and possibly so the data might be aggregated to get a global progress, stack up. So this is mostly in terms of reporting.
Yeah, on that question is what I mentioned, that we have a reporting template that our countries have to follow, specifying how they have made progress on each and every priority and how each and every stakeholder has been involved. There's also an indicator framework with the general data that comes from public sources that countries have to fill and update. That doesn't need to be filled at a yearly basis, because sometimes data is not updated so quickly and on a yearly basis. So, but the Pathfinder reports templates that have been reviewed by the SDG monitoring group that has to be presented every year by Pathfinders.
Awesome, that's great. We also have a question from Puva. It says that key to accountability mechanism is roadmap and PF priorities. How can it be ensured that CSOs have access to these roadmaps? I don't know, Benji, you want to take on that, or maybe Christina?
Sure, thanks, Bukeni. Yeah, it's critical, obviously, for civil society to know what those commitments are, so that they can support and also hold countries to account for putting them into practice and implementing them. So they're on the Alliance website. That's a commitment to transparency that Pathfinders undertake when they become Pathfinders. So their roadmaps and then their annual reports are all available for civil society, for anyone really to pick up, look at, and judge for themselves, where the shortfalls are, and also opportunities to perhaps support implementation. But yeah, it's all public, and I don't know, Christina, you may want to add, but it's we do make a big effort to get those reports and the roadmaps themselves online.
Yeah, so just to add, as mentioned before, the new Pathfinder Country Accountability Framework, one of the purposes of this is to make sure that CSOs and other stakeholders are involved in the process and have access to the roadmaps. But since the beginning, since the design to the implementation and reporting. So in theory, this is the main purpose of the new accountability framework.
Awesome. Just also to add that, you can find more information in terms of this roadmap, as Benjamin said, on the website. Probably when once the rebuilding process of the website is complete, but you can find what these roadmaps are. And but also another thing that I want to ask, what Christina and Benjamin added, is that for each country, for each focal point, for each Pathfinder country, there is a government focal point. So once that is available, it might be a very great liaison for anyone who want to get in touch and try to find out more. So probably the alliance can help to kind of making sure that these focal points are known, because sometimes when you are in country level, you may not know who is the focal point for the government or for the alliance. So the focal point can serve as really a kind of great resources in terms of collaboration, connection, and see how you can get involved. I don't see. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Tim. Yeah, thanks so much, Tim, for joining in. Professor Tim he is the chair of the for Free the Slaves. Free the Slave Board. So very grateful, Tim, for you joining us this morning, despite many of the engagements that you have. I mean, anybody want to ask a question, but you didn't maybe have a chance to write it down. Please, you can go and then raise your hand through the, if you hit reactions, and you can see where you can just hit raise hand, and then we'll identify you so that you can ask question if you want to ask a question directly. It's also good that if you want also make some comment, but make sure that you keep them very short, and as you come to make them just will be good to introduce yourself, where you're calling from, and then make those kind of short comments if any, but that is now the time to do it now. There is a question from Ghazal Malik asking, will the focal point be made public? I don't know, Benj, do you want to take on that? If the focal point, if the PFC focal point will be made public?
Not currently. I don't believe that's a requirement that we identify the focal point on the website. But it's certainly information available to the representatives of civil society on the global coordinating group. So that could be a channel if organizations are interested in establishing contact. But so far we haven't put that in place in terms of putting it out to the wider public. But for those interested in focal points of given countries, through Free the Slave Global March, that we can get that information.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone want to get in touch with a specific focal point, as Benjamin said, there are channels that you can use because this information is not public. But or if some of the government are transparent enough, if they have if they have the information available on different websites of the ministry, this information might be there in terms of who is the focal point at the alliance, but also the other channel is you can pass through a member of the GCG for civil society. You can reach out to us to try to find out, and we'll be happy to ask to see if we can get that information for you. But it is not a requirement, as Benjamin rightly said, but we are happy to see any way that we can help you to get that information. That is very same question for Eunice Ngwe from Survivor Network Cameroon. She says she wish to find out the focal point for Cameroon. So yeah, probably we will liaise. After this meeting, we can see if we can find that information for you. Do you see any hands up or anything? Because I can't see the whole screen or anyone. Or did I miss, or did we miss any questions in the chat?
No, not really. Other than Gupta's question regarding how could CSO assess the roadmap. So I just wanted to add to what Christian has already answered in response to him. CSO would be able to assess those roadmaps, particularly if CSOs within the particular countries are very engaged with their government, particularly at the planning phase. I think that's where a lot of the strategic meetings and engagements by national institutions and focal point persons engage with civil society. And I think for Gupta, that is where the entry point for most civil society organizations. While the government is preparing its country reports or country roadmaps, we are able to make contributions to the outcome of what government eventually submits to the Alliance and the ILO. So I just wanted to kind of emphasize that, to say the planning stage is the critical stage for civil society organization at the country level.
Awesome, that's great. We still have kind of a bit more than 15 minutes. I don't know if we address the question from Marube. Did we? Maybe I don't know if I missed that. I was, he was just wondering what are some of the proactive initiatives that Alliance 8.7 and ILO have in place to persuade countries that are hesitant joining.
Yeah, I said a few words on that, but maybe just to elaborate a bit on our outreach to countries. I mean, it's important to note that Pathfinder country process and system isn't for every country. We're not saying that this is the relevant and the way, the path forward for every ILO member state. So I think it's important that countries have a very good understanding of what it is and what it isn't, the opportunities that becoming a Pathfinder country presents, but also the implications, which are, thanks to the accountability framework now, higher. The bar is set higher than previously. So we do make considerable efforts to promote that or put that on the table to our member states as an option, an opportunity, and then to really explain in a pretty thorough way what it means to become a Pathfinder, what the expectations are. And so that is really even, we went through Bukeni the phases of the accountability framework, starting with the manifestation of interest. Before the manifestation of interest really is oftentimes a whole process of dialogue with countries where they can get informed about what it is all about, and we can just engage them in a discussion about, is this a good step forward for a given country? Our general view is that it's quite relevant. It's quite for any country. The opportunities are there, but it's certainly not the only path toward accelerating progress to eliminating child labor and modern slavery, forced labor, and trafficking. So it's I think that maybe as a pre-phase is really that promotional effort, and then explaining what it's about to countries, so that if they do take that step, then they do it knowing very well what they're getting into and ready to commit the resources and the energy that's required to do it in a thorough way.
Hi, Bukeni.
Yes.
I just want Benjamin to throw more light on Terry's question. Terry was actually asking if it is possible to have a standard method for annual reporting, if that's at all feasible in terms of. But my sense is that country roadmaps are unique to countries, so I don't know if there's kind of going to be a very generic standard annual report expected from different countries. So what's the position?
Yeah, maybe I would turn to Christina for that one, who is really involved in the nuts and bolts of the indicator framework and the reports, which are tailored to individual countries. But Christina, do you want to respond to that one?
Thank you, Daniel. So what I mentioned before, that there is a template for reporting, this doesn't mean that it's the same for every country. So the structure is the same, but it's tailored to the country's specific priorities that they have identified together with all the stakeholders. So each country has to go priority per priority, reporting on progress and reporting on what are the next steps for the next reporting period on that particular a priority. Also, there is specific questions on the involvement of stakeholders, each of stakeholder, and so on. So although there is a template and a structure that all countries follow, is really tailored to the specific country's roadmap. If that is a response to your question.
Yeah, I guess that answers Terry's question, because he wanted clarification on whether the Alliance could provide an annual report on best standards, general practice. But like you've answered clearly, roadmaps are country-specific activities, accomplishments. So I think that's fine.
I think we seem to have no more questions so far, so which is we are quite we are quite on time and very well timed. I don't know, maybe I would like, if there is no further questions, I would like to invite Benjamin to maybe deliver the few final or concluding remarks before we can end this.
Sure. Thank you so much, Bukeni. And again, I just want to reiterate the huge gratitude for organizing this event. We see the accountability framework as a turning point for the Alliance and part of a process of bringing it, what has been quite a global level initiative, down to the ground in a more meaningful way, and broadening the Alliance so that the hundreds of partners that the Alliance has, and those many, and they're listed on the website, many of the organizations here today are partners of the Alliance, but that there can be a practical and meaningful way to engage with those partners. So the adoption of the accountability framework really is a key step, and I just want to recognize your leadership, Bukeni, and Free the Slaves in the development of that, along with many others that I mentioned. Government of Mexico and Sara Luna personally, Karvar from Global March. I could spend quite a while listing the members of that working group that put it together and tested it and piloted it, and really I think what we have now is a framework that it has been consulted and it has buy-in from the Pathfinders, and that's the most important thing, that the countries themselves contributed to its development, and so that there will be no surprises when it's implemented, which is as of now. It's been adopted. So this 2023 will be the first year that we will put into practice the provisions that are in the accountability framework. And just a couple of things that are interesting to highlight, and I think important to highlight, because and it's been said by the chair and by others that we see the accountability framework as addressing the risk that the Alliance is used for just kind of reputational benefits or blue washing, as the chair said, and that and that really would put at risk the credibility of the whole initiative. So the accountability framework is about making sure that there's integrity and credibility in the process. And a couple of things are key in that regard. Changes to the governance and the whole process, and that includes that roadmaps are required in order to become a Pathfinder country, whereas prior to the adoption of the accountability framework, what was required was a workshop and stakeholder consultation. Now the bar is raised. You need to do that workshop and bring in all the stakeholders, including civil society, social partners, government agencies. Got to be a whole of government approach for that planning exercise. But then that needs to result in a concrete roadmap to advance and accelerate progress towards target 8.7. So that is one significant change that is now in place. And the second one that I think is important to mention is that those countries that don't do that, that joined the alliance in the previous, since its creation six years ago, but haven't yet taken the step of developing and submitting a roadmap, need to do so this year, or else they'll be considered inactive, which Bukeni pointed out the phases or the different kinds of status. And at that point, of course, we will continue to work with those countries to try to get them back on board as Pathfinder countries, but there are limits to that Pathfinders will not be able to benefit from being a Pathfinders if they're not coming through with on the commitments that they've made. So just to highlight those couple of substantive changes that the accountability brought in. Just a word on the role of civil society. I think it's critical. Civil society organizations are in communities. We're at the coalface of the global battle against child labor and forced labor, human trafficking, and slavery. We as ILO have worked for decades directly with civil society organizations, tapping into their networks, their knowledge of community dynamics, their ability to promote social change and community mobilization in our efforts against child labor and forced labor. The role that civil society plays in the alliance is critically important, and now will be hopefully expanded, because with the governance changes that have been put in place recently in a strategic workshop of the alliance and with the our partners, regardless of whether they're on the GCG or not, will be able to propose proactively activities and of the alliance, and so we're hoping to really inject a big dose of dynamism into the alliance, and frankly to leverage the capacity that is there. And it's a little bit of an untapped potential to date, because I think there haven't been very clear avenues for CSOs to get involved and to do things, under the banner of the alliance. But with that provision that, the action groups, work groups, and so on can be generated from the partners, any partners approved by the global coordinating group, hopefully that will trigger a lot more engagement of civil society, and of course in under the leadership of the Free Slaves and Golden March, the representatives on the GCG. So we're very much have a lot of expectations and hope that engagement and interaction with civil society. Some CSOs have integrated their work with the alliance into their institutional plans and work planning, and I think that is something we very much appreciate and applaud, and hope that others will do that, so that it's kind of institutionalized and a bit puts the collaboration on solid footing, and becomes more sustainable, and demonstrates that willingness to engage also at the international level, so that the work can be and experiences can be shared amongst countries and good practices more quickly adopted so we can accelerate progress. And the accountability framework, just a final word, it goes both ways. It's increased accountability for countries, but it's also increased accountability for other partners of the alliance, the Secretariat, the GCG, the partnership more broadly. Pathfinder countries are there because they want to share what they're doing, but also because they want assistance. And so I think the accountability is also on partners to demonstrate and step up and say, this is how we can support implementation of the roadmaps in a given country. This is how we can ensure that our knowledge and expertise can be brought to bear in the context of national action plans on child labor and forced labor. So I think with that, I would leave it, Bukeni, and just thanks again to everyone for your attention in the webinar, and we're happy to launch the accountability framework. And again, a big congratulations to the SDG Monitoring Working Group and to Free the Slaves again. Thank you for organizing this session.
All right. Yeah, thanks so much, Benjamin. Very much appreciate your words and the overview of what all this means, which is very important for civil society partners to know. I have just a quick question. Someone has sent me a direct message saying, what is the next step from here? What will we do? So I think, this is something that we'll discuss organizationally. This is quite something that, we'll take up into the regions to organize some of these kind of roundtable with specific key stakeholders to continue to, to share what this is, as in every region we have many Pathfinder countries, and in other regions there is no Pathfinder country, but the interest is kind of growing. So we will be thinking how this can be done in a way that, to ensure accessibility and really increase the information about the accountability framework and the Pathfinder community as a whole, and what it means for the community as we intend to achieve the SDG by 2030, in general. So I want to say thank you, Benjamin. Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you so much, Sarah Luna, and thank you so much, Jane. Of course, and really, Chair Anousheh, thank you so very much for your support on this. And also thank you all for really, taking the time to join. And thank you so much for your questions as well. The discussions, I think, will continue. We are open. If there is any follow-up questions that may come after this, please feel free. And also download the version. I sent you the link. But it will be also, when you go to the Alliance 8.7 website, you can find more information beyond only, just the accountability framework. And thank you so much also for the interpreters for ensuring that, everybody, whichever language he speaks, can access, can understand, and can participate in this webinar. So I want to say thank you again, all, and have a very good day wherever you are. Thank you, and bye-bye.